Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Whatnauts review show, where each week we have a different story to talk. Where each week we have a different story to talk about. Could be a comic book, a movie, TV show, all sorts of stuff. This week, the third and final season of Dark. I am super excited about that. I've been waiting for so long to finally talk to some more people about the show. Every so often I'll hear someone on some podcast be like, "Oh yeah, I just finished watching Dark," and it's like, I would love to talk with you, but I don't know who you are, and like all of this stuff. But yeah, here we are. Finally talking about season 3.
It's me, the first friend who has also watched all of Dark.
Yes, exactly. My name is Kyle Springer, and I am joined, as always, by Melissa Wilkinson, my first friend who has finished Dark. Melissa.
What an honor.
Yes, indeed. How are you this week?
I'm good. I wanted to update the audience because the last time we left our hero, the end of our recording of the captain's log on Friday night, I kept screaming because there was a storm outside. There was so much hail.
Yeah.
It was so loud, Kyle. I'm still amazed you couldn't hear any of it. I guess it's a testament to how good my microphone is. But I wanted to report back. No storm damage. My car didn't have its windshield caved in because it sure sounded like maybe it could have.
That's good. Good news with that.
There's debris all over the place, like branches and leaves and stuff. But other than that, I think the metropolitan area survived loud storm 2021.
There you go. You should get one of those commemorative T-shirts that are like, "I survived the hailstorm of St. Louis 2021." Right?
But I feel like in 3 weeks nobody's going to remember that happened.
No one
like
will.
It's preserved here in posterity for the podcast. It'll become part of Whatnauts lore, but the city won't remember that time a storm was very loud.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I'm glad you are safe and you have survived. My week has been pretty good. I'm excited because I'm about to go on vacation. So I'm kind of wrapping up all the podcasts that I'm going to be doing before I go on that. I leave on the 16th, which is next week, next Friday, but almost done with all of the podcasts that I'm going to be doing before then. So I'm realizing that my week doesn't really have any plans. Like, I don't have to read something. I don't have to watch something. I don't have, I can just do whatever. And so yesterday I binged a majority of season 3 of the Expanse.
Okay.
Man, that show is so good. Go watch that show. It is amazing. And the actress who plays Juliet in Lost showed up. And I was like, I know her. I've seen her in something else. So
good to see a familiar face.
Yep. Indeed. But we are not here to talk about that. We are here to talk about season 3 of Dark, the third and final season. Melissa, I believe you finished it this morning. You had the finale to watch this morning. So how are you feeling? What are you thinking? What's going on in your mind? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Were you surprised? Was this expected? What's going on in your mind?
We did nudge recording back an hour because I knew, I knew I would have time to watch this. But I'm like, I'm not finishing this and then immediately sitting down at the computer to talk about it. I need space. I need to think about it while I do dishes or something.
Right. Yeah.
I liked the finale a lot. Mid-season 3, the show lost me a little bit mentally and emotionally. But the finale wound up being very a surprisingly clean way to end everything. And I felt pretty satisfied by the end.
Yeah, see, like that is the thing. Like knowing how much you and I both like lost,
Mm,
and then me being like, Melissa, we need to watch Dark. You'll like it because it reminds me a lot of Lost, and having that controversy with the end of like, well, was it
mm,
satisfying? Maybe if you look at it in this way, but maybe not for most people. And also just knowing how messy time travel can be,
yeah.
it's hard to come up with a good way to end a show like this. And I think that
Mm,
was one of the things I had said. Like, despite all the mystery and all the places that this show goes, I felt like it wrapped up beautifully. It was just like, wow, that was like a good story that had a definite, like, here is the end, right?
yeah.
Um, so that is an accomplishment for the show indeed. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, so I guess spoiler free thoughts. What else were you thinking? Not of just season 3, but as for the show as a whole.
Oh, it is. uh, it's such a great grand work. The thing works like a clock. It's really beautifully constructed. The show is aesthetically stunning. I love this entire cast. I love all the performances, the way the show looks, how it's filmed, the music choices, the way an episode is structured. That stuff's all killer. How consistent and concise the story is. How
Hmm.
everything you need to know is answered by the end of the series. Like it really hits out of the park on a lot of elements. But finishing the series, I do wish that we had a little bit more room to spend with the characters. There's
I
such
agree.
a huge cast, and there's a lot of people who I really wished I could have gotten to know better. Or like they'll drop these major revelations, and then we never really know how the characters feel about that. Now
Yeah.
that you know you're related to that person through time travel hijinks, what is your emotional state like? I'd like to see that a little bit more.
Indeed, I agree. I think I don't remember what season 3 was on Rotten Tomatoes, but it was another one that was like 90 something, like 97, 98,
Yeah, yeah.
something like that. And yeah, it's the third season is incredible still, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think looking back on the show, yeah, there are a few things that I think like I feel like I could have done with maybe one more season just to kind of stretch things out a little bit and let the show breathe some, because
Mm.
as much as I've said like there is not a wasted moment in this
Yeah.
show, and I praised it. That's, I think, also maybe one of its downfalls is they don't waste a
Mm.
moment. Like it's just all
Right.
work and no play. Um,
Exactly. It's like you've got like you're playing a video game and like you've got the sliders you can set for your character, and like if you move a slider all the way to one side, you can't move another slider to that side. You know, you play video
yeah,
games, you've seen this. It's like they set the cerebral slider to 100% and that maxed out their like emotional slider, and it's like, "Oh, it's stuck at 35.
yeah.
Guess we'll keep making the show."
Yeah, I mean, but like that's the thing. Like as much as I feel like the third season really exposes
Mm,
some of the like the things about the show that might not be the best. I
yeah.
think the show still at the end of the day is incredible. Like what they do
Mhm.
with this, what they do with the characters, and how it all fits is just brilliant. Um, I remember the first time I watched this last year when
Mm.
season 3 first ca- came out, and by the end, yeah, I was tearing up and just being like, I didn't expect to get this emotional with the ending. Like I like
Yeah.
not at all. And there I was
Yeah.
just being like, this is beautiful. Like I love this. Like for a show that is aptly named
Mm.
Dark, the ending of this show is hopeful. right? It
is.
It has this levity to it that is just like, this is nice. Like, I really like this. So, good
yeah,
stuff.
I agree. I'm happy that we're in the same boat with a lot of these, that this is a show that by season 3, you're like really honed into, this is what I love about the show, and this is what frustrates me about the show.
Yes.
That there's certain things that they do sometimes, like there are sweet moments, there are moments of character connection and emotion. There's just never enough of them.
Right.
But the final episode itself goes a long way to make you feel better about that. They pack a lot into those 73 minutes.
They do. Okay, so brief synopsis of season 3 as best we can. And then we'll get into housekeeping and spoilers after that. So, season 3 picks up with the revelation that there is more than one timeline. There are in fact many worlds, but we are focusing on these two. That one where Martha ends up dying, and one where she does not. And so yeah, she ends up saving Jonas from the apocalypse, and we get to start exploring this alternate timeline where things seem to be mirrored throughout the season. A lot of these sets that we have seen are now flipped, and stuff like that, and things for the most part are the same, but there's a number of key differences that have changed things. And so we are exploring that, and we discover the like alternate group. We know that Adam has his own his own group. But there is one that is also fighting against him from this alternate timeline, and they have their own travelers and stuff like that. And it is the war between the light and the dark has now been brought into full view. I feel like that's like as spoiler-free of a synopsis as we can kind of get. Do you have something else that you might want to add to that?
Just saying that we go, I think, further back in time than we've ever been before, and a little bit farther forward in time. I think at the end of the day, the show covers like 250 years. It's a lot of time. Yeah. In addition to the worlds, we move a lot. We move around in time a lot, more than we did before. You'll see a lot of things briefly, which maybe that breadth of what it's covering kind of leads to some of the frustration of, okay, it's cool that we went over here and you showed us this, but I have no feelings. You didn't leave room for feelings.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, that's kind of where we pick up with season 3. But we are going to take a quick break for housekeeping, and then we will come back and we will dive into spoilers. So we will be right back. We put a lot of hard work into the shows that we make, and yes, we make multiple different shows here at the Whatnauts, and we'd love it if you would check them all out. You can find out more information on our website at thewhatnauts.com, as well as your favorite podcasting platform of choice. When you type in the Whatnauts, all of our shows will pop up right there. Just don't forget to give us a nice rating and review if you like the shows. If you want to support what we do here at The Whatnauts, patreon.com/The Whatnauts is the best place to do that. You can support us for as little as $1 a month. You can get all kinds of exclusive content at the $3 tier. You can also get a shout out and thank you on all of our shows at the $5 tier. You can support us on Twitch by subscribing to our channel at twitch.tv/The Whatnauts, and we would love to have you all join us for our live streams and talk with us in the chat. And lastly, we have merch. If you want to grab yourself a shirt or a sweatshirt or a mug or something else, go to thewhatnauts.com/store to pick up some merch today. And we're back. Hi, hey.
Yeah.
Big shout out to our Patreon supporters at the $5 tier and above. So thank you, Sam, so much. We
Thanks,
appreciate you.
Sam.
It means a lot. Thank you for keeping the mics on.
Mm.
Cool things that we have been doing recently. We've been doing our reactions to Loki, the new Marvel Cinematic show. We have one final one to do, which we will be recording on Wednesday, which will be my last podcast before I go on vacation. So be on the lookout for that. I'm excited to see the finale. 'Cause I have no idea what's gonna happen with that. I have my theories, but I think I'm wrong. So
we all do.
We will see. Yeah. So
sometimes it's fun to be wrong.
Yeah, indeed. On top of that, Black Widow just came out. And I believe later today we are going to be recording a spoiler cast for that. So be on the lookout for that as well. Both of those will be on the Reactor Core, which is one of our other podcasts. And you guys can find out more information on our website, thewhatnauts.com, where you can find all of those. So yeah, that's about it for that stuff. Melissa, let's get into spoilers. There we go. Spoilers have done their thing. We are here.
They have.
Can you believe Tom Cruise shows up in a helicopter at No.
If only. Tom Cruise wouldn't be allowed. He smiles too much for this show. This is a show, I really do admire it. It's very impressive. I'm glad I spent the time watching it, but it is so austere. There's no fun. There's no smiles. There's so few moments of like happiness or true affection going around.
Yep.
Yeah, and I don't hold it against it. I understand why it is what it is, and that's part of this vision. And the vision is so cohesive and consistent. Like, there are not tonal shifts in the show. Even if I'm not so happy with what the tone is, I admire that they picked one and stuck to it.
Stuck with it, yeah.
Nothing in the show is jarring. So that's a pro.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of that one unified creative vision, something that I didn't realize until like immediately after we recorded for season 2, I found out that the creators are a couple. They're married and they have a kid and stuff like that. So yeah, it's this creative team that knows one another, like, and can play off of their strengths and stuff like that. And that's why it is so just tight and uniform. And it's just like, they nailed it. So good stuff with that. But yeah, I didn't know that. I know that information has been out there, but I just didn't know that. So
right, like today after I finished the final episode was the first time I looked up the show on YouTube. Like, now that I've seen it all and I can't be spoiled, let me find like a Dark Explained video. And so I watched like, here's the timeline in chronological order. Here's a little video about just, hey, have you heard of the show? It's good. Let me tell you a little bit about it.
Yeah.
And I got to like actually see the creators for the first time, see some of the actors being actors.
Yeah. I did that a bit too for the first time because I guess I don't know if it was just me being in the midst of the pandemic. Like, once I got done with Dark, it was like, okay, well, on to the next show. And I just like, did that. So I never went back to look at all the Easter egg videos and stuff like that. And I watched a few of those this morning. It's always so strange to hear actors talking in different accents and different languages than like what they are in the show. Both the actors that played Jonas and the younger one and Marta can speak English and stuff, and so
good.
it's just like me as that like dumb American who's just like, oh, they're all German, they speak German, and that's it. And then I hear them speak, and I'm just like, they could speak better English than me. This is amazing. What in the world?
It is good to hear that, just because I was watching the show, and we do a decent amount of international entertainment here on the review show. Not an awful lot, but I feel like more than many other shows of the same type.
Sure.
And I'd be interested to watch more entertainment from Germany now. This being my first thing, besides like Metropolis, other like very, very old movies that you watch in college. I was watching the show saying, I really hope I get to see any of these actors again in the future. Like that they cross my path again. Because there are such high caliber performances in this show. Yes. I really admired all the performances.
You will see some. I'll loop back around to something at the end of the show, but yeah, you will see them in something else down the road, I'm sure. But yeah, that was just a neat thing to have, that realization that's like, oh yeah, I'm being the dumb, ignorant one, and yes, they can speak English. So there you go with that. But Melissa, let's dive in to this. What do you want to talk about first? What is like the big thing that is standing out that you want to start with?
Before anything else, let's just talk a little bit about Universe B and how we felt about that side universe, the goth Martha universe.
Yeah, Edgelord Martha.
I do like how her and Magnus look like they've got like dark hair and like all dark clothes. Magnus is covered in tattoos nowhere. And like Mikkel doesn't get to have his skeleton suit anymore. Instead, he just has like a lumberjack hat.
Yeah.
They know what to do with this Mikkel B. We don't see much of him.
Yeah,
I thought it was.
I liked the alternate universe.
Yeah,
like it is. Like the whole show has that like feeling that something is wrong or something is off. But this one, I think, does a very, very good job of still maintaining its visual look, but still being distinct that, hey, this is the alternate universe because everything is flipped. Like all of the stuff is mirror image, which from a production standpoint means that all of the like posters and stuff that I'm sure they had to have on the wall were flipped, so that when they do flip the scene in post production, that the text will turn out the right way and stuff like that. So that's an interesting thing, but it's like it's distinct enough that you're like, hey, that house is backwards from what we remembered. Oh, that must mean that we're in this, or like someone's scar is on the opposite side, right? It's enough clues like that to key you in, but it's still just so subtle that it's like, this is nice. It still fits. Like they don't need to scream that like, we're in an alternate universe.
I don't think I even picked up on all that mirroring. I was looking at like the more obvious things where it's like, instead of Detective Wooler missing an eye, now he still has an eye, but he's missing an arm.
Yeah.
I did like some of the character differences. We've got that one, which is like the closest to a gag that the show gets.
Yep.
But I liked other things like, Katarina has glasses. She looks nice in glasses. I loved long-haired Bartos. I liked all those his dad with his like reverse Just for Men, like bright white beard.
It was great. Yeah.
The Universe B is some neat stuff. It's not funny in the show. It's just sort of absurd that Universe A, Ulrich's married to Katarina, cheating on her with Hannah. Universe B, Ulrich was married to Katerina, cheated on her with Hannah, divorced her, is now married to Hannah, expecting a baby, and is cheating on her with Charlotte.
Yeah.
Like, what is it about this guy? He's not that handsome.
It's a small town. They get around.
There's only so many characters, right? If we would have gone to another universe, he's already married and divorced all of them, and now he's with Regina. Like, it's just every woman in that age bracket in the town.
Yeah, which, I mean, doesn't help for all the time travel shenanigans. You're this person's dad. You're your own great grandfather and all that stuff. It just, it's the whole thing is a mess. But yeah, they do a lot of stuff like that I like. And then if you notice the cave, the chair is on the opposite side of the thing. The house that Jonas grew up in, which is now, it's like all the main characters of that universe live in that house.
It's an amazing house. The set designs for this show are great. I wonder if that's a real house that I could really go see on a trip to Germany.
Probably somewhere.
I don't want to see anything historical. I just want to go see the Cannawald house, please. Yeah.
So in universe B, that house is flipped on the inside. So there's that. Yeah, and then like season 3 starts with like mirroring a bunch of scenes that we saw in season 1, but it's different characters or it's a different perspective or something. Yeah, so that I thought was neat, of like, oh, this is how they clue us into like it's the same but different. Good stuff with that. Good stuff. And then the last thing I wanted to say on that, the actor that played Killian, which seemed like a new character, he actually was in season 1. He's another one of the actors in the play that they are doing. So he did go to that school. And in season 1, he's not credited as being, I don't remember their last name, but the older brother
Obendorf?
The older brother of the first kid that went. I mean, he's not credited as that in season 1, but then by season 3, they're like, what if he actually is? So
I thought that was also a neat addition. Like, poor Eric has still gone missing, and he's still not a character. We know zero things about this boy who's like the inciting incident of episode 1, season 1. Yeah, nothing. I did think that was also a neat touch. Like, oh, what if he had a brother and Martha's dating this brother because this is a un-Jonas universe. There's not a Jonas here.
Indeed, yeah. It's interesting when stuff like that happens, because it, like, we know Winden is a small town, but we know it's also pretty sizable too. Like, they make a couple references to that, of like how big it actually is. But like, despite the cast still being pretty large, we only focus on those people. So if it's not the ones that are like tied up in this time travel conspiracy, we basically don't see them. Like, they're just non-existent. So yeah, it's neat to get someone new that it is like, oh, like you are someone who exists at this school. We just have never seen you before. So
yeah, that is something that I was missing. Like, I wished we got to know Winden a little bit better, like from perspectives besides the ones we already know. Like, the major industry is the power plant. What else do you have? I wish we had more landmarks in Winden. Like, we could see like a little store changing throughout the years.
Yeah,
like, let's go to the high school in another time period. You know, what was the high school like before we first see it chronologically in the 80s? Can we see like
built? Was it there in the 50s?
Yeah, and like we see a mayor once in like the 50s timeline. Like, the unknown goes to convince the mayor to like sign the paper saying, yes, I give a permit to build the nuclear power plant. I don't know who the mayor is in any other generation.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting timeline. But as this show continues, we learn that it's not just two timelines. There is, in fact, a third, and there's probably many more out there, but this show focuses on the three, which is kind of what the show does. The past, present, and future. It works in threes. And so,
that was...
we get what is called the origin timeline.
Yeah.
What did you think of that one?
That was a great way to tie everything up. It seems so obvious, but you don't think about it at all until Claudia's like, there's a third one. And Adam's like, oh my God, of course there's a third one.
Yeah.
We're in the same boat that he is in that moment, which is nice to be like, to have these characters like Adam who are so far above everything, know so much more than you know. You get one moment where you are on the same page is really valuable.
Yeah.
The penultimate episode is called Between the Times. And we go back to like, the time has been operating on these 33-year cycles. And maybe you'll see like 6 months before or like 6 months after, maybe a year. But it really holds to these 33-year cycles. And the second to last episode is visiting all these other time points throughout this 250 years that are outside of those particular markers.
Yeah.
And we see, like the first thing we see is in like the 1970s. And I'm like, what's this? We're not supposed to be here. This isn't on the cycle timeline. Then you're like, oh, that's the premise of this episode, showing you these glimpses from all these other times, which was a great choice. And then you see in that final episode, all that stuff we were showing you in the 70s, that's not in either of these timelines. That's a third one.
Yeah. Yeah, because then you start to really realize it when it was H.G. Tannhaus is building his time machine, and he's making it in the bunker in the 80s. In 86, and you're like, wait, that's not supposed to be happening then at that point. What's going on here? So yeah, that was a good thing. I think this goes back to what we said at the start, though. I wish it had a little bit more room to breathe. That all of those revelations come in the final two, and I wish that they had given us a little bit more. Spread throughout at least this season, or like I said, like I feel like I could have done with one more season to just like space it out a bit, or like maybe not an entirely new season, but like if each season had maybe 2 more episodes, so each one was 10. Right? Like I feel like that would have helped just a small bit. But like in that penultimate episode, we see something I liked, which is that Celia comes back. Celia, who we saw at the beginning of season 2, where Jonas goes to like 2052, and there's like older Elizabeth. Celia is her translator, and I'm like, this girl has to be related to somebody. Like that's how this show operates. She wouldn't appear this much if she wasn't significant some way. But we didn't get any, like there's no clues to anything about that in that timeline. And then finally, here in the penultimate episode, we find out that she is, first off, the daughter of Hannah, who went back in time to like 1954 and had an affair with Egon Tiedemann. So she's their daughter. And she's sent back to like 1906 to fall in love with Bartosz. And Noah and Agnes are their kids. Yeah, which then gives light to, I think, like the first scene in season 2 when we see a younger version of Noah murder that guy. That's his dad. That's Bartosz. Right, which you have no idea that's what that scene is. I remember watching that scene the first time, and I'm like, who are any of these people? Right? Yeah. But this show does a lot of that stuff beautifully. I think another one to point out would be Katerina. and the way she dies, which is tragic, so sad.
Yeah.
But she dies on the beach because her mother kills her because she thinks she is being a creep and following her, and she wants to help break her husband out from jail. When her mom kills her, she drops the necklace that then Jonas and Martha will find 33 years later down the road. But then we see the mom weight her book bag with rocks and stuff and put her in the lake. And then in the scene when they're all at the lake, they're telling this tale of the woman in the lake that they found a body in the lake. Yeah, and sometimes you can still feel her reaching up and all of this stuff. And
that's your mom.
Yeah, it's their mom, and they don't know it.
Wow. That really gets you. That's what this show is so good at.
Yes.
All these connections, and you'll have these parallels that will really hit you. But then there are other things like Celia going back and falling in love with Bartos, and she's been part of all these lineages the whole time. Fascinating. But there's they just look at each other and smile, and the next scene is now we've had a baby. Years later, we've had another baby. She died in childbirth, and Bartos is like, "Oh no, my Celia." It's we're just told that you two were in love. We were not shown this. You two smiled at each other once. There's so many of those. Yeah. We get a little bit more of Elizabeth and Noah, but it's still we're just being told this is an incredibly important relationship. They don't give a lot of little character and relationship development time. Some of them get more than others. The Bartos and Celia one, I think, is just the starkest example of, well, they smiled at each other once. So you, the audience, you get it. You know that they're in love. And I'm I do know that, but I wish I could feel that.
Yeah, I think there's, I don't remember which timeline it's in, but there's the question of who is Regina's father.
Yes.
There is a picture that is shown, a picture in a frame. I think this is in the Origin universe, if I'm not mistaken. You guys can correct me in the comments below or something. But there is a family picture, and the father is the guy that ran the power plant before Regina's mom was there. The one that there's that scene where they're across the table from one another, and she's sitting there these numbers don't make sense. It's
burned.
Yeah.
It's Helg's father.
Yeah. So everyone thought it was going to be Trant, but it wasn't, because they were having an affair and stuff like that. So I'm not sure what universe that happened in exactly.
Is this the photo we see at the very end?
I think so. I think it's one of them.
I thought that was just an Egon. I thought that was her and her mom and her grandpa.
I mean, I'm not sure exactly, but that's what I read that one as. It's we finally see a family portrait here.
See, what I thought that is so what we do. It seems like it's all but confirmed Trant is Regina's father. And then in this final episode, we find out there's the two of them. There's old Claudia and old Trant at her grave after she dies in this post-apocalyptic world. They're looking at Regina's grave, and Trant's I wish I would have been her dad. She was great. And because Trant isn't her dad, we don't know who her dad is. It seems like it might have been just some normal civilian man who's not in the picture anymore for whatever reason. Because Regina is that step removed from all of this cyclical time travel nonsense. If Trant's her dad, this makes her related to all these other characters. That makes her a step removed from everything, and that makes her somebody who can be saved. Somebody who, when they hit the reset, when they go and restore everything in the Origin universe, she can still live. We see in this final scene, we see some of the characters that we've known gathered around a table, and some of them are missing because it's well, if there's no time travel nonsense, Charlotte and Ulrich could never have been born. They're not there. They could not be there.
Yeah. And then you see different relationships, like, oh, this one is now married to that one, and stuff like that. Yeah, it's interesting to see all of that. And Regina never got cancer because they never forced the mayor to sign the papers to stop the coal union from taking over and stuff like that. So in the origin universe, there is no power plant. There's a scene where it shows that skyline, and there's no smokestacks. So which means she never gets cancer and she survives. So yeah, it's a wild story, and there's all sorts of stuff like that. I want to circle back around to the play, this idea of Ariadne, that we see as a major theme in this whole show. So I've seen some people online trying to not connect the dots, but be like, oh, this character represents Medusa, and this character represents Theseus, and stuff like that. And there are some things that, like, okay, that has a similarity, but I guess Ariadne is often associated with mazes and labyrinth. I can never say that. Labyrinth. Yeah, there we go. And so, yeah, just the idea of this, like, big mess and maze of time travel is really neat. But she also has that theme of the red cord, which is, I guess, also in the play, which is supposed to be like a connection between characters. There's the, like, Chinese red cord of fate, I believe. That is a similar thing. But then to see that there is a red cord in the caves to guide them to where they need to go, like, there's themes like that in the book. Or not book, but in the show. But then, speaking of the book, the H.G. Tannhauser book is published by a company called Minotaur, which is another connection to the whole mythology thing, and with the legend of Theseus and Ariadne. Specifically. So there's just some neat stuff in there with that. That's just like, man, there's so many details and so many small things in there that's just like, this is great. I love it. This is why I was like, Melissa, it's like Lost. Like, there's so many things like in there. You need to watch this, Melissa.
It is so narratively lush. I wish it was just a little bit lusher in terms of the characters. Like, I wish I got to know these people a little bit better. Like, Charlotte finds out Elizabeth, her daughter, is also her mom, and we never really get a scene where Charlotte's like coming to terms with this. Yeah, like, stuff like that I felt a real absence of. It was stuff that I would love to see. And something else I found that kind of bugged me about the show, the further I got into it, is that everybody's dialogue kind of sounds the same.
Interesting.
Like, there's a lot of repeated lines and repeated motifs, but, like, you look at Adam and you look at Eva, it's like, you talk the exact same way. Like, I feel like if you gave me a page of dialogue and blocked out who said everything, I couldn't tell you who is talking. Like, nobody really has a different speech pattern or, like, a different set of colloquialisms or lingo or, like, a real strongly personified way of speaking than anybody else.
I see what you mean, but I think that's also partly a product of the whole time loop thing that's going on, right? Like, it's this, like, self-fulfilling thing, and all of their travelers are just doing what they're being told. So it's this big, like, oh, well, like, you're in charge, so I'm gonna start saying the same things you say, but then I'm saying them, so then my younger self is also saying them, and then it's just this big, like, this big like incestuous time loop here, where it's like we're all just
literally
gonna
and
say the same
figuratively,
thing.
yes.
A man has 3 deaths, right? He has the one when this, blah, blah, and they all just say the same things over and over.
Like the patter of the dialogue like just melded together so much for me. And it's not just with these elder advisor characters. Like, if you gave me some dialogue from the teens and you're like, all right, which one is Bartos and which one is Magnus? I don't know if I could tell you if you removed any specific references to people or places.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that that's in there that can get messy and stuff like that. But I think compared to something like Lost, where it just didn't tell you some of the answers, I think this did a good job of telling you what the answers were, or getting you to a point where you understand them. It's like, oh,
yeah,
that's her daughter, but also her mom. And the downside then is, okay, well, we just don't get another scene after we realize that.
Yeah.
There is no like reconciliation with that. So it's more satisfying, but also like there are some things that's just like, I wish, like I wish we just got a few more scenes of stuff.
Yeah, I keep talking about Lost because it's just a big reference point that both of us have, something both of us are also passionate about. And Lost, for as narratively, as mythologically messy as it was, it excelled at character. It had all these very vibrant characters who had strong relationships with each other. Something that I was missing from this show, from Dark, is that we have a lot of strong family bonds and romantic bonds, but there's very few platonic friendships that get a lot of weight on them, which is something Lost was. Right, yeah, we need like a Hurley and Charlie or a Kate and Claire. Like, we need a strong platonic friendship in here somewhere. I wish we had more of that. And Lost is a show, like, yeah, it's like the character journeys, the character development, how the relationships grow. That is what you watch that show for. That is its strongest asset.
Yeah.
And it's a show that it's something I've found that I wish more people respected Lost better for how much it got that right. Is it disappointing in your brain a little bit? Sure. But your heart has got like, it's like I've got 2 check boxes.
Right now is that scene when Hurley and Miles are discussing how time travel works, and they're just like, no, you idiot, like that their past is the present for them. It always had like, no, that's not how it works.
I was watching this show, and I'll stop talking about things about it that disappointed me, but there's
you're fine.
no character, like, you don't see Eva talk to young Martha and be like, hey, do you remember this story where this thing happens? Like, there's no personal reference points that any senior characters use to like explain something to their younger versions. It's never like, okay, well, you've seen Back to the Future, right? It's like this. And not saying that it has to be like a pop culture reference or something, but they never pull out a personal anecdote. I wish that, like, when the teens got stuck back in 1888, that Magnus would have been like, oh, I wish I had an iPod. Like, there's 0 reference points anywhere. I don't need the show to be drenched in pop culture references, but I wish there were like 1 or 2. The complete absence of them feels a little unnatural. I wish the dialogue and like how characters talk to each other and related to each other had just like a little bit more. It's just like a little bit more.
Like, why aren't they using modern day slang in the like 1890s when they get sent back there? Like, and people just have trouble understanding them because they don't know that slang. It's like, what is a cell phone? What is a phone? Like,
right. I wanted to see something like that. I wanted to see this like relatable human touch to some of the characters, where Hannah does go back and start living in like 1950, but she's like, Bob Beans, I wish I had a microwave. Like, we get none of that. I want just one.
Yeah. Or because there are like, so I know the group of them that's stuck back in the like late 1800s. They can't time travel forward, but it is one of those things like it when Bartaj realizes that Celia has passed away in childbirth, like we get no moment of like, if only I could have taken her to my time or stuff like that. Like we would have had the technology to save her, and stuff like that, or because she was in 2050 something too.
Yes.
So like, did she pick up on some trick that they had for when new babies were born in this post-apocalyptic future, that they can then bring back here? I mean, because they do bring a few cell phones back in time to make the time travel things work. So there's also no talk about like how that's really affected the course of technology. And like, I get it. At the end of the day, that's not the story they're telling. And so, it's just like, all right, well, we're not gonna talk about that. But yeah, they're just, it, like you said, it's almost to an unnatural extent where there's none of this. Just like, okay. But
this is they treat time travel so cerebrally, so philosophically, and they're excellent at it. I can tell that this is a show that is exactly what it set out to be, and it's truly admirable. But you're right, we're so used to time travel stories having some element of like a comic juxtaposition, or somebody like being a true fish out of water, referencing something that doesn't exist or doesn't exist in the way that they're familiar with it. What do you mean Ronald Reagan's the president? He's just some actor. Oh, you have Calvin Klein written on your underwear. That must be your name.
Right,
I just wanted somebody to like miss something or reference something that they weren't supposed to, or like, well, we traveled back in time and the entire town is like, they don't like Francisca because they don't understand what she means when she says something is cool.
Yeah. What do you mean it's dope? Like, what does that mean? Yeah. I think besides that, the other thing that I did not really like about season 3 was that it kind of like, the show is already complicated in and of itself.
Yes.
And then season 3 kind of takes that up a notch or 2 or 3. Because not only are we flipping back and forth between different time periods, but we're also switching back and forth between universes. And again, like, this is one you really have to watch multiple times to really figure out and place, okay, that's this universe, then this time, and then here's this one over here, and this one. And the show has all the clues necessary for you to figure it out, and for you to figure it out pretty quickly. But it's still just happening so fast that it's just like, you're just bombarded. Like, each time they switch back and forth between the A universe and the B universe, they have that like warping effect. So when they do that, all right, now it's switching to a different universe. But then there's still like, you have to pay attention to the visual clues that are in there, like, oh, this house is flipped, or the scar is on the wrong side. Like, and if you don't catch those things, you're probably gonna be really confused of like, what is happening, where am I, when is this? And I feel like the show could have done something better to kind of signify that like, hey, we are now in this time period and in this universe and stuff like that. And they do that with the dates. But again, there's so much of like, all right, we're here, now we're here, now we're there, now we're here, now we're here. And it's just like, fuck it. Like, I just tell me the story.
Yeah. And this, so we last recorded on season 2 of Dark 2 weeks ago. And like that night, I started watching season 3. I got through a couple episodes. And then I took a break for a couple days just so I could focus on Kantaro, the Sweet Tooth Salaryman, which is what we watched last week on the review show. And then when I came back to Dark season 3, it had been,
by the way.
Yeah. So much. That's all the fun. All the fun that's missing here, it's in Kantaro. I came back to Dark after less than a week and I'm like, I feel so lost. How did my brain lose all of this immediately? The show does become almost aggressively convoluted in season 3.
Yeah,
but which is why I was so impressed.
Under its own weight.
Yeah, but this is why I was so impressed by the series finale, because like even in the penultimate episode, I'm like, how is this ever going to make sense? Where is this show going in like an emotional way, not just in a logical way? Where are we all going to end up? And the finale, when Claudia comes out and she's like, there's a third universe. Everything originated from there. We have to kill these two. These are a cancer. These are a blight on that first one. Like, it kind of takes you off the hook. Like, it's okay if you don't understand how everything is connected, because we're going to do away with that now.
Yeah.
And it never should have been like that in the first place. And we see this third universe that we don't realize we kind of already saw in the previous episode, looking back at a slightly younger Tannhaus. And this is a story that was told. Like, I think in every universe, this did still happen to him. He had a son and a daughter-in-law and a little baby granddaughter, and they died in a car accident. And that really broke him. And, you know, in one universe, he's adopted Charlotte, and he says that's his granddaughter, but she isn't. But she's emotionally taking that place.
Passed that off because they never found the body
Yeah.
of the baby.
Yeah.
So it's just like, well, I now have this new baby. So
her name's also Charlotte, conveniently. But to have this third universe where that is the biggest breaking point, and it's about these characters that are not related to anybody else. They're not blood related to anybody else. You know, like Charlotte was still raised like she was at Tannhaus.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, like when we go back in time, we see some of the previous generations of the Tannhauses, but it's like a straight line down. Like there's they didn't crossbreed with anybody else. And when we first saw that photo where Tannhaus shows that photo to Charlotte of like, you know, this was my family. Like, I don't recognize any of those people.
Right,
Am I supposed to? And it was a real relief to find out, yeah, you're not supposed to. Those are completely original people who are not caught up in any of this time travel nonsense.
Yeah.
Like, we go to this third universe where it's just Tannhaus, and he's like, and we're told he invents time travel to try and save his family. And that's what breaks the world. That's what creates these two other splinter realities. Jonas and Martha, you have to go back, stop that car accident from happening. That will stop Tannhaus from inventing time travel. And then everything will be clean. You guys will vanish, but the world will be set right again, and that family will be together.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
I think
an
it's
interesting way to end that story. Because
I appreciate that it's
go ahead.
No, I just want to say I appreciate that this was all saved for the final episode, which saved it from getting like really tangled with everything else. Like when you see this thing, you're really seeing it kind of with clear eyes. Like you recognize you are being shown something that's pretty much new. It doesn't feel muddled with all these other the different universes and timelines. And I also appreciated that it was about these fairly minor characters.
Yeah.
Because they had to be minor characters. They're not one of the major players because none of these major players were ever supposed to be major players. They weren't supposed to exist. They can't be here.
Yeah, I agree with what you just said, though I do still wish that there was some kind of hint or foreshadowing or just more scenes of this alternate, this origin universe kind of sprinkled throughout the rest of the show. Like for those of you guys who have seen Mind Hunter on Netflix, they've done 2 seasons. It got canceled. Unfortunately, there's not going to be a third, so it never got resolved. But a lot of their cold, a lot of their cold opens in the show was for something that wasn't even happening in the main show. It was used as this like foreshadowing that something down the road is coming, something down the road is happening. So I think it would have been neat to have something like that where just every so often, we don't need a lot of them, but enough to be like, they keep showing us scenes of Tannhaus like building something. We don't know what it is, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like it's not enough to give you context. It's not enough to be like, okay, he's in this time period or stuff like that, but enough to be recognizable as its own thing and just have that just every so often just pop up.
Yeah.
And then by the end, when we realize, oh shit, they've been showing us this third one the entire time, and that this is the inciting event. This is it. Like right here. Like that would have been phenomenal. But it's all just like put here at the end, and it's just like, well, that makes sense. I like that they showed me this, but just man, I wish they teased it out just a small bit more. So
I understand. Yeah, I think it's I felt set up for it enough because we got those scenes in the penultimate episode. Like that was enough of a trick for me. Right, because I can remember this happening 1 episode ago. If they showed me this at the beginning of season 2, I would not have remembered. This show is so dense that your head can only hold so much at a time. Yeah. I completely forgot that Noah's original name was Hanno, and people would mention Hanno, and I'm like, I don't know who Hanno is. Like, your brain can't, like, you have to devote yourself to this. You have to take a full semester exclusively on Dark, no other classes. You have 3 credit hours, and the credit hours are Dark. Like, that's the only way to really comprehend the show on first viewing. Like I said, the fact that this is a show that operates on patterns of 3, on triads, and when Claudia says, there's a third universe, you buy it immediately, it makes sense immediately, you accept it immediately. Right, like I was a fool to think there would only be 2 universes. You're absolutely right. I think that goes a long way into making the finale work. And I love when we go to this, origin universe, it's shot differently. It's in a different aspect ratio. I love an aspect ratio change in the middle of a movie or TV episode. It looks beautiful. It's like the most lushly filmed of these 3 timelines, which is saying a lot. Yep. And it is a very small story of just 3 characters. The baby just cries. The baby's not there. I think she's holding a block of wood wrapped in a blanket. There's not a real baby.
Maybe that's why they never found the body, because it's just a block of wood.
She's a Pinocchio.
Da, da, da.
This was the small, character-driven, really emotionally dynamic story that I felt like I had been missing, where there's no other cerebral, philosophical, mythological lore weighing it down. It's just like a father and son who disagree.
Yeah.
Like, it felt so pure and clean after everything that had happened. Like, yes, I understand. This is what must be allowed to flourish. Everything we've seen, there is no way you could ever clean all of that up and make happy lives out of it. All those characters, even before, in episode 1, before that many bad things have happened, when there's just one local boy who's gone missing, everybody's still, like, real unhappy in their lives. You're right. You're right, guys. We do need to wipe the slate clean, and this is where we need to be at. Where there's just things like, Dad, I don't want to take over the family business. And that's the greatest conflict we have.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff indeed. So I want to talk about the ending then. When they go when they go to the origin universe, there's that really neat scene, like just before it starts, where Jonas is in the woods when he is looking at Martha and Bartaj meet with Magnus and God, why am I blanking on her name now?
Francesca,
yes,
Francesca.
Yes. Yeah. And he just like comes running out of the woods and tackles her like right at the last second to like steal her out of that scene. Great scene. It's wonderful. And yeah, then they arrive in the origin timeline. And yeah, there's the way they depict this is so different from everything else in the show, and it's beautiful. It is this Matrix-like thing where there's just these blue dots, blue lines like flying by. It looks like they're in like hyperspeed sort of thing, but it looks
sort
more
of
like stars and just this twilight stuff that is happening there, and it's beautiful. It's this really calming moment, and there I like how the end of this show really then focuses it again on the relationship between Jonas and Martha, of them seeing their younger self, or like Jonas seeing a young Martha who has this memory of like seeing this strange man in the back of her closet, like in Narnia or something, right? And then she has this vision of seeing like a younger version of Jonas as he's looking down the stairs into the basement, and it's this idea that it is still all one big time loop, but they have like always been there for one another from the start. And it is this really beautiful moment that they kind of realize, like, hey, we were always meant to be, but we weren't always meant to be. If that makes sense. Right? Like,
we are not meant to exist. Our universes should never have happened, but our relationship was real, was valid, is part of some greater plan. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And they have their Back to the Future moments where they just start wiping away and they fade off into the distance, and that's it. That's the end of the show. They after they had saved them from going off in the bridge and stuff like that, and the Tannhaus daughter-in-law mentions that they thought they saw an angel, which in the universe B, when Jonas dies, he falls on the floor mural of the family tree, and he falls right in the center, so it looks like those spans are big wings. So yeah, they have some stuff in there like that too. But it's a beautiful way to end the show.
Yeah, and then you've got that sweet epilogue where Regina lives. I also like that Regina is a more minor character among the main cast, but her mom's love for her is such a powerful force. And like, if her mom's this big shadowy power player who's like always trying to get it right, trying to save everything, like her connection with her daughter, trying to find, well, if Regina dies in both universes, what's the one where she does live? Like, that's how she figures it out. And we see this world where Regina is alive. And she lives in the Canawald house. I don't know how she got there. I guess if it was Inez's house originally and she never adopted Mikkel, maybe she never wanted to hold on to the whole house by herself and just sold it to some local woman. Yeah, so it's Regina. It's Hannah, who's now married to Detective Wooler, who had an eye injury, but it is healing.
Yeah.
And she's pregnant with a baby that she says she wants to name Jonas. And then we've got Peter and Bernadette are together, which I liked. I liked that, their dynamic. You could always tell like they were fond of each other. It wasn't, it's only illicit. Like there was a connection there. They're together. Yeah. And then Katarina's also there. But you can imagine she may no longer be named Katarina because we found out her mom named her after this woman she met when she was a little girl, and that woman was Hannah gone back in time living under Katarina's name.
It's an important thing to know. There. I think she is still named Katarina because...
Oh, did they mention it?
This is one of the things that I saw in how is she still named Katarina? And I think it's one of the thing without the time travel shenanigans. Yeah, there wouldn't have been that inciting event that we know of. Hannah going back and being like, "Hey, my name is Katarina."
Yeah,
but I think it's one of those things that at the end of the day you just don't need to look into it. Like that's a normal name. Her name is Katarina.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Right, like it doesn't stand out. It's not wow, where did you ever come up with that? She could have just as easily name. Read it Katarina. In a book or something. Wow. Right. But you wonder if maybe did she still come to that name or not? Yeah. And there's no Alexander in this timeline, even though he has nothing to do with the time travel nonsense. You just imagine that maybe he never committed that crime, against...
Or got caught somehow.
Yeah, like he never fled to Winden. We have no idea what's happening with him. And it's fine. Like, I accepted that was a mystery we were never going to learn. Did he kill that guy's brother or was it like an accident? They both got in over their heads. What that whole deal was, we never find out. And I figured we probably never would, and that was fine. It was
an accident in the alternate universe. So
yes.
It could very well be. It could very well not be.
Yeah. I felt good that, I guess, what was his name? Hauser, the detective in season 2, who was a real highlight. I'm disappointed that he was never able to come back in any other way. He exists in one timeline once.
Yeah.
But I'm happy that guy's brother is supposedly still alive, you can imagine, and Alexander didn't commit this crime, but I liked Alexander and Regina's relationship. They were one of the healthiest romantic relationships the show has had. I'm like, beans. They don't still get to be together.
Yeah. Trying to think of other things I want to talk about. So, I liked that we got to see a younger version of Peter. In the show.
Some of the best casting. Yes, and he's a character who was not in the teen timelines of seasons 1 and 2. He finally shows up briefly for one scene in season 3. Looks perfect.
Do you know why?
Is that his son?
It's the actor's son. Yeah.
Good.
So they're like,
I was watching
exactly
this.
Like him. Let's just use him.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I feel like him and older Magnus are the two finest face matching in the cast. I was wondering because these are all performers I've never seen before, have no context. I was wondering how many of these generational and multidimensional things are we just cast that actor's relative.
I think if I'm not mistaken, the middle-aged unknown and the younger one are also father and son. Or it might be the old one and the middle one. I'm not sure exactly there, but I think they were another one where they were like, hey, let's cast the real life father and son, stuff like that. Yeah. man, there's so much stuff that happens
I
in this.
do
It's
want
hard
to talk
be
about.
like, let's pinpoint all of these.
I do
You
want to
have
talk
something.
about the
Go
unknown.
ahead.
That
Okay,
is
yeah.
a great. That's like one of the first things we see at the beginning of the season is that we see this man who we can't place. He doesn't look like anyone. And then we see his child version and older version, 3 generations. And you're like, none of these people look familiar. He
Yeah.
can't be an older or younger version of somebody we already know. This is somebody completely new. Who the heck is he? Why are the 3 of them together in matching outfits and coordinated movements?
Yeah,
And we never
creepy.
really know how they synced up, how they found each other, why they operate like that, why only the middle one talks.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Oh,
it.
so
it's a
eerie
creepy thing there. But yeah, they are the child of Jonas and Martha from their alternate universes, Joe and all of that stuff. Yeah, I like them a lot because I think not explaining it like I wouldn't say that this show is a horror show, but it has so much atmosphere that is just creepy. And I think this might be one of the creepiest things in that show of just how in sync their movements are. Like there are scenes where like the young one and the older one will be in the back around, and they'll just fold their hands at the same time, and it's just like, what was that? Like, how did they know? Like, what is going on?
This is one of the best ingredients in the show. Yeah,
it's so good.
I wish he had like slightly more to do at the end, but I do like that when Eva introduces young Martha, like, these are your son. And like the little one goes and hugs her, like, and Martha's like freaked out, but you can tell she's like, I believe you when you say this is my son. I've never seen this kid before. I'm terrified. I will let the boy hug me. A boy should get to hug his mom.
Sure. But it's the fact that they don't explain it beyond that. Like, you know who they are, but you just you don't know why they're so in sync, how they met, all that story. You just don't know. And it's the fact that they don't explain it that makes it that much more scary and that much more creepy.
Yes.
Because it hints at, hey, this, like, all of the time travel stuff that we saw, that's just the tip of it. Like, there's so much more. Like, the picture, that old school picture of Sigmundus that they identify Noah in, like, hey, he was the one that has the older version of Magnus and Francesca in like they're in that picture. We just didn't know it was them yet. So like they have all sorts of stuff that they don't really explain fully. They give us a satisfyingly enough answer as to how Jonas ends up looking the way he does when he becomes Adam, but they never show it. It is more of a death by 1,000 cuts, like, hey, your body can't handle time travel, so it eventually turns into this. But
which is enough.
Yeah, which is enough to be like, all right, that makes sense. But then we also get that one time when he is trying to fix the thing and the lightning hits his arm and it burns his arm, and you're just like, oh, it's begun. Like, there it is. But
I did like that we got to see
that story.
I did like that we got to see a middle, like a transition from the stranger to Adam, like a middle stage of that. Where I guess it was the actor who's been playing the stranger, just like starting with Adam makeup. I don't know. I wish I knew any of these performers. They're all excellent. But yeah, that's such a chilling scene where Hannah, and we also have no idea how or why Hannah got there. We don't know what happens to Hannah for several years. She just goes off and has Celia, and who knows where they live. She's got that time travel briefcase and she can go anywhere. But she shows up
I think
like
it's implied that Egon is part of that, because Egon is one of the travelers on the light side, and their whole directive is to like, hey, make sure that these characters stay on their path. And so there's the scene when Hannah is about to have the miscarriage, and Egon shows up to then like send her back in time to have.
But that's in universe. That's in universe B. That's the Hannah that's married to Ulrich, who's like goes into labor when the apocalypse happens. We see the Hannah from universe A, who went back in time, had the affair with Egon, and she shows up with his kid. We don't know what happens to like Hannah B. We never see her again. That's all Hannah A.
Interesting. I guess I'm wondering if that is Hannah B, and we just don't know it.
I thought about that when we see that like Hannah B is pregnant and we see that Hannah A gets pregnant in this timeline. I thought, does she have a way to just jump timelines completely? And she like killed Hannah B and took her place? But I think there's a scene where she sees Jonas and doesn't recognize him. Am I imagining that? Am I confusing it with something else?
There's so much in this with small important details like that. I'm just like,
right.
At the end of that day, I don't know.
Right. If you turn around to like click on or off the lamp and you turn back to the TV, you may have missed something incredibly important.
Oh yeah.
The show's too dense.
We also don't really get the story of how the Jonas that is trapped, like back in the late 1800s, how he forgets all of the stuff, because he should have remembered the Martha from the other universe, but when she shows up, he doesn't remember her, and he makes note of it. He's like, well, how come I don't remember this then? And they never explain, or they did, and it's one of those things that like you kind of have to put the pieces together yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a one that I was just like, I don't. So when does that happen? Like, when does he get sent back there to do all of this stuff? Because it's after he's the stranger, but it's before this, and it's hard to keep track of all of that stuff.
But it gets wiped clean, and then you don't have to think about it anymore, which is I accept. I accept that I've been watching aberration universes that need to be pruned. They're variants. We don't need them.
Absolutely. One other minor Easter egg that I want to point out. I think this one was pretty obvious, but it's one that is just like has nothing to do with anything in this. In Universe B, when they're at the school, they turn a corner and go up the stairs, and as like the camera is looking down the stairs at the kids as they come up, and there are the twins from God, now why am I blanking on the Stanley Kubrick, Jack Nicholson?
Oh, The Shining.
Yeah, The Shining. The twins from The Shining are standing there in the school.
What?
Yeah. So that's just a neat thing. Like, and then it's a fast scene that if you're not paying attention, you won't see it. But yeah, they're just standing there.
I was looking at glorious long-haired Bartos. I liked that look for him a lot. I liked his like sweater. He looks like he came out of the 1980s. I was confused for a second when we were.
Yeah. He has that, what we just learned about on Friday, the dark academia look.
Yeah. Right? I liked all the aesthetic differences for those kids in Universe B.
Yeah. It's good stuff, though. Any other things that you want to point out or talk about? Or questions you still had?
Questions? I don't know. I think the season had a lot of powerful things in it.
Mm-hmm.
All the stuff with the unknown is great. Jonas suffocating his own mother because he knows she's not supposed to be there is striking. That he's gone like so cold and so logical about it. And he's like, I've never seen you have a future, so you must die here. I must kill you.
Yeah.
That's cold. Katarina's own mother killing her is intense. Some of the stuff is good intense. I didn't like what happened to Elizabeth in the post-apocalyptic scenario where the man breaks into the trailer to get the soup.
Yeah.
That was, I think that was too much. That was too heavy of a hand. That was the time when the show's like, that's too dark. I wish you didn't do that one. That's I think a bit too aggressive of a scene. That being said, I think it is like Peter trying to fight that guy in the confinement of the trailer is like good action. It's like good stage fighting craftsmanship.
Absolutely.
I just wish that storyline hadn't been quite as grim as it was.
Yeah. There you go. That's Dark season 3. We've now watched all of them.
All the Dark.
Yeah. So something else some other things that I kind of wanted to mention is that the After Dark, they have a new TV series coming out called 1899. Should be out in 2022. It was supposed to be out 2021, but I'm assuming because of the pandemic, that's gotten pushed a little bit. But the actor that plays the Stranger is going to be one of the actors in that series, so you will see him once more.
That's good.
That. Yeah, and this is another show that they're doing for Netflix. Apparently, they have some deal with Netflix to produce multiple things for them. But 1899 is apparently about a boat that is traveling from London to New York at the turn of the century. And it's about a handful of different Europeans from a bunch of different countries, all traveling to New York with this, this hope of a new life. And then somewhere in their journey, something happens, and things take a turn for the worse. So we don't really know what that is yet exactly. They said it's not going to be time travel because they want to do something else. But, that was a lot of first people saying, like, will they? So I think they said they find another boat out there in the thing, and like that might be the inciting event that like once they find this boat, like things go really wrong. So they were like, is it the same boat? Like, is it time travel somehow? And they're like, no, it's not that, but it is gonna be something else. I'm thinking it's gonna be a horror show. That seems to be kind of what it's leaning towards. But we don't know. And yeah, it's not all in German. There's going to be some all of the characters from the different countries that they're in speak their language and stuff like that. So it is this grab bag of different countries and stuff like that. But that's kind of all we know. There is a teaser that has been released 2 or 3 months ago, I believe. So that's out there on Netflix, but it is just a teaser. Like I there's not much to it.
You see a boat.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm excited for that one. And what else was I going to say? Oh, so the director and of this show, Barenbo Odar. I think his series. I think it was his movie Who Am I? I believe this is the one. Yeah. It was a 2014 German techno thriller film directed by Barenbo Odar. This was the thing that Netflix, like, with the success of this, Netflix was like, hey, you should do something for us here at Netflix. Netflix originally asked if they wanted to have him do a TV show based on that same story, but he ended up turning them down because it's very similar to Mr. Robot. So he was just like, I'm not gonna do that. It's they're already, Mr. Robot's already out there. So I am now very interested in that film because I love Mr. Robot. So hoping to go find that somewhere somehow. But yeah, that's all of that. So be on the lookout for 1899.
Yeah, I will be. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah. So that's all I got though for Dark season 3. God, yeah, I think this has absolutely shot up into like my favorite shows of all time. Just with how masterfully it was all put together, stuff of just like, what do you have next?
It is masterful. Yeah, I'm very impressed. I'm excited to see what all the people involved do next time. It is one of the most impressive shows I've ever seen. I really admire how it was told, how concise and well constructed it was.
Absolutely.
I don't know if it would get up into one of my very favorites simply because I am missing that emotional angle a little bit. Like, when my primary feeling about most of the characters is, I feel bad for them. And I don't know if I love any of them. Something's missing for me a little bit. My brain's got a full check mark in it. My heart's like, I don't know.
Understandable indeed. Well, Melissa, I think it's time we check in on bingo. Do our bingo update for the week. I don't think I have anything else that I can add on mine because I still have stuff like a courtroom scene, an actor who appears as themselves, robot blamed for murder, and none of that stuff happens.
If only
here in this
time machine blamed for murder. I think I can cross off. We're not so different, you and I, in the scene where Eva's trying to explain everything to Martha. It's like, look, there's 3 of us. We are you. It's not exactly what I intended when I started, when I added this.
She is trying to explain, like, hey, I am your future. Like, like, you will grow up to be me. And you don't believe that right now. We don't think the same thing, but we're not so different, you and I. So yeah, I think that one fits.
Yeah. That helps fill out my board a little bit. I don't know. I'm still lagging behind you.
Yeah, I have 1 bingo so far, and we're trying to do just like see how many you can get.
Yeah.
Period. So, but yeah, that's that. That's the update for bingo. So, Melissa, do you want to do recommendations? If people like this, what else might they like?
I don't remember what I recommended for the first season. I know I talked about Lost. We talk about Lost a lot. You may be tired by it. But watching this show really made me think about Lost a lot, just contrasting the two. Lost, as I discussed, is a show that where like the mysteries and the plot of the thing kind of falls apart, but it's such an emotionally satisfying show. Got all these real lively characters who you get to know very well, see them grow, see their relationships grow and change. And at the end of the day, that is the strongest aspect of the show. Something that definitely makes the ride worthwhile, I think. If you watch it through, will you be upset about not getting some answers? Sure, you probably will be at the end of the day. There's stuff I still feel puzzled about, but just where every character ends up at it's... My heart is so attached to Lost in the way it is not attached to many other shows.
Yeah, I agree with that one.
I don't know if I already mentioned Hannibal, but Hannibal, if you like this show, I mentioned it for Kantaro, but if Hannibal's another show that is visually amazing. like great performances, like costumes, sets, the way it's shot, everything about it is gorgeous. It's so lush, but it is also a very grim storyline. Like it's eye candy. There's a certain amount of brain candy. It is a very well written, well constructed show, but yeah, like your heart doesn't have as much to attach to, which is why I've only seen season 1 and I've never gone through and finished the thing, but I eventually want to. Also, the actor who plays Ulrich vaguely looks like Mads Mikkelsen. So I would watch him and just be reminded of how much I like Mads Mikkelsen.
Wait, so is Mads Mikkelsen the older version of Ulrich, or is Ulrich the older version of Mads Mikkelsen?
I don't know. I want to go to bed.
Okay.
And then I'd say we mentioned Mr. Robot also. Mr. Robot is a show. I think it's the show I've seen that has the best balance of brain and heart. This show's way more brain than heart. Lost is a show that's way more heart than brain. Halt and Catch Fire is a show that's more heart than brain, meaning that like that was a show that was all about the characters and the plot was like a little meandering. I think Mr. Robot is the show that you and I have watched that like hit the balance the best.
I agree with that. That was a good show. Also one of my favorite shows. So. Okay, I would recommend the show Devs. This was I believe an FX show. I watched it for the first time a few months ago. It's only one season. I believe it's 8 episodes long. So it's not super long. That's all it is. But it is one of the best like sci-fi shows that I have seen in a long time, and it has that similar like haunting feeling that this show has. Devs is more technology based. It's about this guy that gets accepted into his company's like secret R&D department named Devs, and then apparently commits suicide. But the girlfriend of the guy that did this was like, that's not like him. Something's wrong here. I think he got murdered. And so she investigates that and stuff like that. Because you see the guy as he gets accepted into this new program, and he has his first day where he kind of sits down to discover what it is that this new program is actually doing. And you don't see what it is. They don't say what it is, but he freaks out and he starts throwing up and all of the stuff, and he tries to run away, and that's when he gets killed. So yeah, it's an interesting show. I think you all should check out. We mentioned Lost. I know at the start I mentioned when we did season 1, I mentioned Steins Gate. If you want another time travel show, that one is a favorite of mine as well. It's a lot more lighthearted. The dark stuff that happens in there is still dark, but it's just comparing the two shows, Dark is by far much more dark, and there are some legitimately laugh out loud moments in Steins Gate that I love. But yeah, that's a very, very well researched time travel show that I think you all should check out as well. Have anything else? Oh, last but not least, I would say The Expanse, the show that I'm watching right now. It is also sci-fi. It's more out in space and stuff like that. But it is dense. It does not stop for a moment to be like, oh, okay, let's explain this like you're a third grader, because they they just go, and it's nonstop, and it is incredible the way that they tell the story. And it's just like I cannot help but just be like, all right, next. What's next? What's next? But yeah, it follows a small ragtag crew on this ship out in space as they are kind of caught in the middle between this Cold War turning into all out war between the Earth and the humans that have now colonized Mars, as well as a third faction called the Belters that live out in the asteroid belt. And there is a discovery that is made that is changing the way they think about life and the world and death and stuff like that. So I would highly recommend that one. It's phenomenal.
Okay. Now,
Good stuff.
This is normally where we would talk about what's going to happen next on the show. But Kyle, you're going to be on vacation for 3 weeks. The next 3 review show episodes will. You're getting out of Winden. I'm stuck here.
Yeah.
The next 3 episodes will be Kyle-less. I will have a series of guest hosts. I have my first guest host for next week. She's agreed to do it. She's not yet sent me the pitches, so I don't know what the topic will be, but it'll be very fun. Next 3 weeks are just going to be sort of a real interesting makeshift, real wild time.
Yeah.
And then I guess, Kyle, whenever you come back, that first episode would be your turn to pitch something. So just whenever you have 3 ideas, just text me in the coming weeks.
Sure. Yeah. I can do that indeed. For next week, when you do figure out what you're going to do, we will tweet it out. Just so people can know. I will try to update the description of this YouTube video and stuff like that to mention what we will be doing next week, as well as our website to have that information there for you guys. But yeah, I'm excited to check those out. I don't know if I'll get to follow along at home because I'll be spending time with my girlfriend, so she gets all of my attention instead. But yeah, I'm excited. I think you guys will knock it out of the park. I think the big major change is that it won't have a video component.
Yeah.
So I need to set you up with all of our files and stuff so you can put those together as an MP3. But yeah,
I think I do still have them if you haven't changed them from last year.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so this will still be up on podcast services. It will still go up on YouTube. You just won't get to see everyone's beautiful face. So we will figure that stuff out. But yeah, be on the lookout for all of that, whatever you guys might be doing. So, that's exciting stuff. We also need to figure out what we're going to do for our next end of the month thing. So Melissa, I'm sure you and I will talk about that. I know we've talked about doing a book. Like an actual book. We say we're a book club style podcast, but we've never actually covered a book. Just like a regular ass normal book.
I mean, there's been we've had comics that have had prose sections in them, which are, not to downplay a graphic novel as a novel, but yeah, I would like to try a fully prose book with maybe 0 illustrations in it.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that's what we're gonna do, but I don't know. We
certainly can.
So again, we will let you all know as soon as we know that. Oh. Yeah. There you go. I believe that is about it, though. So, Melissa, where can the people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wilkywit. That's WILKYWIT. And listen to my other podcast, Saturday Morning Obscurities. This is me and my brother Jams talking about weird old kids shows you feel like only you remember. Our latest episode, I think, is on Kid Video, which is an 80s show where a live-action band gets sucked through a portal into a cartoon world. So it's a cartoon, but it's got like live-action credits, and like those actors they voice act the cartoon counterparts.
Wild.
It's interesting. It's a fun little piece of 80s strangeness. Yeah.
Okay. Good stuff. You guys can find me at Kyle Springer on Twitter. And if you guys want to stay up to date with all of the stuff that we do here at the Whatnauts, we are at the Whatnauts on Twitter. So go like, share, subscribe. You guys know the deal with all of that. Thank you for checking this out. Thank you for sticking with us through all 3 seasons of Dark. I enjoyed this a lot. Hopefully you guys did too. But with that, we will wrap things up right here, and we will be back next week. Bye.
Bye.